Hello. You might notice a difference in the background here. That's because my computer is having a little bit of downtime, so I'm using my iPad to record this video. Now, I want to tell you about an incident of such horrendous evil that I shall have to warn you to start with that you'd all better sit down and calm yourself. You know, get a cup of chamomile tea or a shot of whiskey or something to prepare yourself for the evil that I'm about to tell you that happened in a New Jersey township called Hopewell. They'll probably make a horror film out of it. And it goes like this. Hopewell Township has fired a police officer. And this is a good thing because police officers are evil. And just to prove how evil this police officer is, she described in a Facebook post, which she had made in her private capacity as a private citizen, nothing to do with being a policewoman at that point, but then, you know, when you're evil to the bone, aren't you? She described the Black Lives Matter organisation as terrorists. Now, what do you think of that? Now, let's just examine what we mean by a terrorist. I mean, perhaps I've got this wrong, but a terrorist turns up streets, you know, public disturbances, breaks windows, uses weaponry to frighten people, kills people, chases people with various implements like pipes and baseball bats, and by pipes I mean lead pipe, that sort of thing, and baseball bats that beat people up in the street and causes loot shops, maybe causes general mayhem. That is one definition of terrorists. That being the case, then that's what Black Lives Matter was doing, and you could easily make the case for saying that they're terrorists, which is nothing more than the truth. But you have to remember that the truth is evil. Just keep that in mind. Now, just drink your chamomile tea or your whiskey and listen to the rest of this. You see, Sarah Irwin is the officer in question, and she's obviously evil. I've got to keep saying that because she's a policewoman, or in America I think you call it a police officer. And a colleague of hers, I don't know whether from the same office or just another policewoman, but Sergeant Mandy Gray, who made a comment under Sarah Irwin's Facebook post. Mandy Gray is being suspended and demoted, which means in effect defunded. So you see, here you have an example of evil being brought to heel by the courageous authorities. Let's get on with this. Oh, she's been suspended for 6 months. Now, let's have the evil history of both of these police officers. Neither has any prior internal affairs complaints. None at all. And Irwin was serving as a DARE officer, which means that she used some of her spare time to go round schools telling kids about the dangers of drugs. That just shows how evil she is. And according to their lawyer, because of course both of them have a lawyer, a chap called Frank Crivelli, Crivelli says they are exemplary and decorated officers with absolutely no disciplinary history, which just shows you how evil they are. As soon as that Facebook post came out, and I'm trying to keep you in a state of anticipation here, I'm not going to tell you what sort of evil things that Sarah Irwin said. We'll get to that in a minute. But as soon as she did say it, it was reported to the authorities, it was examined by the Mercer County's prosecutor's office, and do you know what? They found no criminal behaviour. Can you imagine that? A policewoman says something and it's not criminal behaviour. Right. Okay, so they sent the investigation back to the township for departmental handling, possibly with a little stick-it note on there telling them what they could do with their investigation, but that's just my speculation. And then the town council last week voted unanimously to accept the recommendations to sack and suspend the two officers. And this was suggested by Witchfinder General Brian P. Trelease, who is a lawyer, but definitely a witchfinder as well. And this was all done under the aegis of Councilwoman Julie Blake, it says here, who serves as mayor, which means they don't have a mayor, which probably means that there's no one prepared to actually be the mayor of that town. Or maybe they're just so riven by all sorts of wokeness that they can't find one of sufficient wokeness to assume that office. Now I shall tell you what Sarah Irwin actually said. And be prepared for the evil. Oh, by the way, in her Facebook page, she doesn't go as Sarah Irwin, she goes as Sarah Elizabeth, which sort of separates her private persona from her office persona. But that's obviously evil as well. Now, this is what she says. Last night, this was in June, by the way, June 2020. Sorry about that, I was having a sneezing fit, so I'll cut all that out. Right, so this is what Sarah Elizabeth said on her Facebook page. And you've got to remember how evil this is, okay? Last night, as I left... Oh, by the way, she said this, obviously, with an American accent. Sorry, Sarah Elizabeth. I'm not going to be able to manage that for any length of time. Right, let's start again. Last night, as I left for work, I had my two kids crying for me not to go to work. Now, this is sort of interesting for a start, you see, because it meant that the kids didn't think that she was going to be working in mostly peaceful demonstrations. It meant those kids thought she might get harmed, which meant that whatever CNN and MSNBC say, even children knew that they were lying. I'm assuming that if she said her children were crying, they must have been somewhere between the ages of about maybe 5 to about maybe 13. Yeah, so they were probably really children, I should think. And they knew something that obviously MSNBC didn't. Anyway, I digress. Last night, as I left for work, I had my two kids crying for me not to go to work. I don't think I've ever felt the way I did last night. And then I watched people I know and others I care about, that's her colleagues in the police department, others I care about, going into harm's way. I love my police family like my own. Well, that's obviously evil, isn't it? So, when you share posts and things on Facebook, I'd really appreciate if you'd think before doing so. I've seen so many Black Lives Matter hashtags in these posts. Just to let you know, they are terrorists. They hate me, they hate my uniform, they don't care if I die. Now, isn't that evil? And for that statement of no more than the truth, Sarah Irwin is being sacked. And for simply making a comment under that post, Mandy Gray has been suspended for 6 months, and when she gets back to work, if she chooses to do so, she will go back as a lower grade and therefore a lower paid officer. And this was all put through by Hopewell Township, which, I have to say, deserves everything it's going to get for reducing its police force by 2 exemplary officers. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.